What didn't Joseph Smith learn in the sacred grove? In other words, if you and I bumped into 14 or 15-year-old Joseph after the sacred grove, what would he still seem to have no concept about? What is it that the Lord didn't teach him in that time in the grove? Think about that just for a minute. And as you're reflecting on it, you're probably thinking, that's interesting, because apparently the Lord didn't teach Joseph Smith about the Book of Mormon up front. By all indications, it seems that Moroni was the first person to tell Joseph Smith about the Book of Mormon 3 years later when Joseph was 17. It seems that Joseph didn't have any real conception about the need for priesthood authority to perform priesthood ordinances, as that question comes up as he translates the Book of Mormon. There's evidence that Joseph Smith did not know about certain church offices. When the church is restored, the only offices in the church are deacon, teacher, priest, and elder. There's no bishops, there's no high priests, there's no quorum of the 12 apostles, there's no patriarchs. Those are all concepts that he learned later. Even some of our most cherished fundamental doctrines and practices in the church, things like the practice of the redemption for the dead, that came later to Joseph Smith, or things in particular like eternal marriage, temple ordinances. These all come much, much later after the grove. The question is why? Why didn't the Lord teach Joseph Smith all of that up front? Why didn't he say, Joseph, don't join any of the churches. They don't have priesthood authority. Now, let me give you an hour-long sermon on all the offices of the priesthood. Why didn't he go into all that? Well, here's a really cool quote from Brigham Young that gets at the heart of it. Brigham Young said this, quote, "The Lord can't reveal to you and I what we can't understand. For instance, when Joseph first received revelation, the Lord could not tell him what he was going to do. He didn't tell him he was going to call him to be a prophet, seer, revelator, high priest, and founder of the kingdom of God on the earth. Joseph would have said, just what does that mean? You are talking that I can't understand. He could merely reveal to him that the Lord was pleased to bless him and forgive his sins, and there was a work for him to do on the earth. The first time he sent an angel to visit him, I interpret that as being Moroni, he could lead his mind a little further. He could reveal to him that there were certain records deposited in the earth to be brought forth for the benefit of the inhabitants of the earth. He could reveal after this that Joseph could get them. Then he could reveal that he should have power to translate the records from the language and characters in which it was written and give it to the people in the English language. But this was not taught him first. After this, he could tell him that he could receive the high priesthood to organize the church, and so on. This is the way the Lord has to instruct all people upon the earth. I make mention of this to show you that the Lord can't teach all things to people at once. He gives a little here and a little there, revelation upon revelation, on revelation after revelation. A precept today, tomorrow another, next day another. Now, here's one of the key principles that Brigham says. If the people make good use of it and improve upon what the Lord gives them, he is ready to bestow more. What a great quote from President Brigham Young. Now, up front, I want you to ask yourself, why is Brother Sweat starting with this concept? Well, there's two reasons. Again, I want you to see that Joseph grew, developed line upon line in his own understanding of things. I personally don't believe if you and I bumped into a 15-year-old Joseph Smith that he would view himself as a prophet. I think that concept came later. I also want you to see that if we understand, I sometimes like to say to students, God did not give Joseph Smith a 100-point plan. He gave Joseph Smith a 1-point plan, and as Joseph fulfilled that point, then the Lord gave him another point, and another, and another, as the restoration unfolded. And if we can understand that that's how the Lord worked with Joseph Smith, we begin to understand that that's how he works with you and I. And for example, a little bit about me. I'm a religion professor. I have a PhD. I've written a number of books. I'm also a painter and an artist. Importantly, probably most importantly to me, I'm married. I have 7 children, currently ranging in ages from 22 down to 4. I'm involved in my local congregation, serving in different callings. Now, if you had told me that those are all the things that I'd be doing currently in my life right now, today, if you had told that to me when I was 13, 14, 15, I would have said, oh, just what are you saying? I can't understand all that. I can't manage all that. So not only could I not understand it and manage it, I also wasn't ready for it. And I'm not sure the Lord would need to teach me something that I'm not quite ready for. It would have been too overwhelming. Frankly, if I'm being real with you, it's too overwhelming right now as it is, let alone when I was younger and a little underprepared. So as we see that, I want to talk about this concept with you. Take a look at this graphic right here. If I show you this graphic and I say, make sense of that, maybe you can pick out a few things. Maybe you can see a few lines and shapes. Maybe you see a star in there. But if I told you to grasp everything that's in it and get command of it, it would be difficult for you to do. Whereas if I start to break it out and show you a line and a box and a triangle and a circle and whatever that shape is, and an arrow and a box and a star, then you start to see a little bit more fully all the parts, and you can grasp them and comprehend them. Without it, as Brigham says, you're talking that I can't understand. There's a beautiful quote from the Christian scholar and writer George MacDonald. And if you don't know who George MacDonald is, I'm sure you know who C.S. Lewis is. C.S. Lewis is one of the great Christian writers of the 20th century. But C.S. Lewis said that his teacher, his mentor, was George MacDonald. And George MacDonald wrote this beautiful quote that I think is really prevalent and pertinent to what we're talking about. He said, quote, "No revelation can be other than partial. If for true revelation a man must be told all the truth, then farewell to revelation. Relatively to a lower condition of the receiver, a more partial revelation might be truer than that which would be constituted a fuller revelation to one in a higher condition. For the former might reveal much to him, the latter might reveal nothing." I believe God is ever destroying concealment, ever giving all that he can, all that men can receive at his hands. It's a beautiful concept to me. And I think sometimes in the modern church today, in our own personal lives even, and when we look at church history, we wonder sometimes, why didn't God tell them that earlier? Why didn't God just give them that up front? Why didn't he fix that right away? Why didn't he reveal that decades before this problem or this issue came up? Well, there's many reasons why, but one of the reasons is that maybe the people weren't prepared. Maybe they weren't ready. Maybe it wasn't the right time or the right context. If we believe that for something to be true, all truth needs to be known, then, as George MacDonald said, then farewell to revelation. All revelation that we get, and even all revelations that prophets get, is partial revelation. It pertains to their stewardship and their time and the needs and the conditions of the people.